This episode is brought to you by Verizon Wireless.
Welcome back to SJU on this beautiful Friday. We did it, guys. We have made it to Friday. That deserves a pat on the back this week. Do it with me now. Yep.
It was a short week.
It didn't feel that way.
No, it didn't.
No, it just felt like a really long, wonderful week, because they always are so wonderful. I'm Roxy Striar, but I am not alone today. New nickname, E.G. Eric Goldman in the house.
She's just asking me about my nicknames. Hello, good. E.G. is glad to be here.
Yeah, what was the other? Rico now we're calling
Rico. I said
you.
my high school friends call me Rico.
Well, I don't count as a high school friend, but I love good nicknames.
All right.
So we'll see how that morphs.
All right.
Also having a long week, Emma Fyffe.
Yes, good McClunky to you, Roxy.
Good McClunky to you as well, friend.
And this man, guys, this week has been a heck of a year.
I like that phrasing.
Yep.
I completely agree.
Yep.
The man who agrees with me on everything as well. Dan Murrell.
McClunky.
McClunky. Yours is a dead ringer for it.
It doesn't get old. I've watched it 100 times.
You are randomly really good at impersonations. Impressions?
Dan is, but he's the thing about that I love about Dan with his impressions though is it's like so under the radar, because Dan is such a nice, intelligent, mild mannered sort of dude, and then these amazing impressions come out of nowhere.
100% agree.
Yeah.
He's very low key about them.
Yes.
It's like you think that he might not nail it, but every time.
Not every time. It's borderline.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start throwing some weird ones at you. Let's see what we can do on this show.
I already did anti 1% Bernie Sanders force.
Oh, that's right.
This week.
Right.
So
yeah.
How did that happen?
It was like if Bernie said, I don't know. Ed was talking about democratizing the Force in Star Wars.
I knew it was an Ed thing.
It popped into my head about then it became like a whole thing about the top 1% using 90% of the Force powers.
Yeah.
The whole Bernie thing.
We've already mentioned Star Wars a couple of times today, but we're going to be mentioning it a couple more because Mandalorian dropped last night, sometime around / this morning, depending on where you live, sometime around 1-ish.
It's out there.
It's out there. Still unclear on their exact schedule, but we're definitely going to be talking about episode 2. Don't worry. We will be giving spoilers, but we have a very fun thing we're going to do while we're giving spoilers, so you'll know it's spoiler time in case you don't want to hear that and you do want to listen to the rest of the episode, because I cannot believe it. I feel so honored. You guys saved Friends Talk for Friday with Roxy.
Of course we did.
I'm just on cloud 9, but we will talk about that. Also, it is Fam Friday, and I couldn't believe this when I read the email. We're doing a mini TV fights today. A 1-round mini TV fights, so jam-packed show for you guys. Also, Billy Business in the booth, who's going to be helping me with that TV fights. It feels like old times, Billy, and it feels so good.
Billy's just nodding away.
There he is.
Pirate Radio
I'm
Billy.
actually mic'd, so it sounds weird because I can hear myself and on a delay, so I sounded drunk.
What's funny is that we can't hear him. Also, I like this rogue headset in the middle of the table that we did
Oh yeah,
just for when we
I
need
didn't
it.
notice that till
set
just
decoration.
a second. Yeah,
that's
sorry.
where Obi-Wan disappeared and his headphones were like.
That's weird.
It's just not,
It's not plugged
It's
in.
not even connected.
No.
No, that's there for, in case we need it.
I thought that
Because all good people need headsets at some point in their life.
Yep.
Anyway, let's get right into this.
I'm leaving it.
Yeah, I think that the ghost put it there, and don't disturb it.
Just to keep it there.
Just let it have what it wants.
That was from a podcaster who died in 1962. I don't know how that
And
worked.
their name was Rico?
Yeah.
Now I see how it all comes around. Let's start with Mandalorian talk, guys, because I want to get the spoilers out of the way. So when you see Joe dancing like this, it means we are spoiling stuff. So if you live somewhere where you haven't seen this yet, or you just haven't had time to watch yet, as long as Joe is dancing, we are spoiling. When Joe stops dancing, we are no longer spoiling. You're welcome. And also thank you to Joe. Wow, kind of grooves very well. What did we say he's listening to?
Kiss from a Rose.
Why did I even question that?
I don't know that this. This is
interpretive.
This is a dance remix of Kiss from a Rose.
He's not really going to the tune that I have in my head, but rock on with your bad self, Joe. All right, starting with Mandalorian talk, the second episode premiered today / last night / wherever you are. All right, in general, was it as good as the first one? Did it stack up to what you thought it would be? Eric, how'd you feel?
I'm loving it. So Emin and I both had the experience of watching it at a screening the other night at the. But it's weird because I do want to mention that because it skews things. Because it's like
It does.
You know, because you're watching it with a hyped up audience of cheering. So I want to say that because maybe people are like, I didn't feel anything from it. But
Because you guys were both at the Mandalorian premiere and you saw 3 episodes,
yeah, we've seen,
correct? But
seen
we're
the
only
third.
talking about
only
2.
talking about 2.
Yeah.
No spoilers for 3. No, I thought it was really great. It's interesting because it surprised me in that it's almost like a standalone adventure. I mean, obviously it's with the same character,
Yes.
but it's creating this sort of obstacle for him. And I understand people will go, well, they could just cut. That doesn't have to happen, right? He could just leave the planet. But to me, I actually really enjoyed it, and it really made me think about the Clone Wars a lot, which Dave Filoni, of course, is co-show running this series, because that show would do kind of like very big lore episodes, but then would be do that one that might be more of like a character study adventure one. So I thought it was really cool, lots of great action, and I thought it was great to kind of get to know our main character more, and to even learn how Jawas work a little bit more. So yeah, I was really into it.
Agreed with that. Lady of Star Wars, Emma Fyffe.
Yes. So one of the things that I have observed about this series that I really, really like is that we only get one character's perspective. The entire thing is only from the perspective of the eponymous Mandalorian.
No scenes away from him.
No scenes away from him at all. We're seeing everything literally like the way he is experiencing it, and I really, really enjoy that. I tweeted after having seen both episodes, so this isn't a spoiler. It's just something that for me, like tonally, thematically, has kind of continued through is. Because, as you say, Eric, this episode was very much its own little contained adventure. It felt like, oh, okay, so now there's an obstacle and you have to figure out how to overcome it. And your first attempt at overcoming it was unsuccessful, so you have to figure out another way around it. It feels like this is somebody's Star Wars tabletop role-playing game. And in
a good way?
In a great way. Like, literally, I would say if you want to learn how to write, like, really good RPG campaigns, watch this show. Because it does such a good job of setting up, okay, this is the goal. Here's like 10 different things that can happen getting there based on the decisions that you make. And so we are seeing the main character, the Mandalorian, making decisions that are, and like the direct consequences of the decisions that he's making. I really thought this episode was so strong, and all I could think, because I was on a Star Wars RPG, was I would have been so freaking mad if my GM ever had Jawas come and strip my spaceship. I would have been real mad about
Bastards.
it. Yeah.
Dan, thoughts?
Yeah, I watched it at home like a peasant.
Me too.
I waited till
Civilian status.
up till 2:30 in the morning, like a a-hole. Yeah, no, this is what I like about the show is that it scratches that itch for me, and it was sort of, as I was watching the trailers, what I was hoping for, which is a show that's set in the Star Wars world, but that is divorced from this storyline that we are still unfolding, that is going to wrap up in theaters, but just this you know, it seems like every piece of Star Wars media that's come out has in some way tangentially or directly been related to the Jedi and the Empire and the New Order. It's all tied back to this one thing. I like that this is just set in that world, but we're seeing a side of it. You know, we've seen Jawas in Star Wars, but only as they relate to Luke Skywalker. Of this idea of, you know, this is sort of how they operate. This is what they do when they're not just, getting tossed on a fire pit after getting hit by the Empire.
Providing a plot device to get C-3PO and R2 into the story.
Yeah, so my one sort of hesitation still remains with this little Yoda baby, only because now that we've introduced the concept of the Force into the story, I'm hoping that the Force becomes like the MacGuffin, and we stay in this world, and this doesn't become another story about the Force and the Empire, or what's left of the Empire, or whatever. Like, I really hope that the powers and everything are stakes, but not what the story becomes about.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Dan, because I totally agree with you. Like, even as somebody that, I mean, like, we all love Star Wars at this table, you know what I mean? But it is really nice and refreshing to see something that isn't at all tied into like the Skywalker saga or like the Jedi. And yeah, obviously we've introduced the concept of the Force. The Yoda baby is so cute.
So
adorable.
Damn.
So cute.
The noises it makes.
I'm gonna die. Like, it is the cutest thing. But I do really hope that the point of it is more like that sort of moral dilemma of it's a child, but now we know he has to like bring him back to the people who've got a bounty out on him, and we've already seen that the Mandalorian definitely has some history in terms of like being a found child, and that's effectively what this is too. So I hope they lean more into that than Force baby.
Yeah, I have the same. It was the one little hesitation. Is that it's like I love the Force. Don't get me wrong, but you want them to be able to tell stories that don't have to involve that. And it's like I love Rogue One, but it's like, hey, they made sure Vader shows up and uses the Force. So it's like it is funny that it's like, and even Solo, it's like when by having Maul appear briefly. It's on one hand, I'm like, oh, I hope they don't go too far into this, but so far so good, and that baby sure is damn cute.
Yeah. And again, we were at a point in the story where we know that later on the Force not being a big thing is sort of the key component of the Force Awakens.
Yes.
So if it's a big thing here, I think it's like, well, wait.
Yeah.
So that's my one potential hang up, but I'm super into it so far. I'm digging it. I love the vibe. I love the action of the fight with that rhino, hairy rhino monster. It's awesome, and
That's the thing about the Force. I agree with everything you guys are saying. However, how cool was that?
Oh, it was awesome. I'm not disagreeing.
Really cool to watch. Also, question for you guys: where's Gina Carano at?
Because she's going to show up in the 4th episode, and the only reason we know that is because and this Q&A was broadcast, so this is not a spoiler. This is something you can go back and watch. But during the Q&A before the screening that Eric and I were at, they had a Bryce Dallas Howard mentioned, or actually, I think John mentioned that Bryce Dallas Howard was the one to bring Cara Dune to life, and that she directed the 4th episode. So
it's kind of wild because her face is the only face that's been on.
I know,
everything.
right?
And I looked on her IMDb last night, and it's no longer slated on her IMDb.
Weird.
Weird.
That's a weird issue. Yeah.
So I'm going to disagree a little bit about the Force thing.
Okay.
Because what I loved about my favorite part of the first episode was how he and the bounty droid sort of used their skills as bounty hunters to outwit that huge group of guys that were after them, and then he jumped on the gun. And it's like, that's what I like about this, is we're learning how smart this guy is, this Mandalorian is, and these bounty hunters are. And I felt like as I was into that fight, like he was so overmatched and so overpowered that I was like, how is he going to get out of this one? How is he going to figure out a way to get out of this one? And so when the answer is like, oh, Yoda baby uses the Force and stops the thing, I'm like, I mean, I get that you need to establish that, but at the same time, like, what I like about this character so far is his resourcefulness, and I felt like that was a little bit of a cheat.
What I enjoyed
to get him out of that situation.
I hear you totally, but what I enjoyed is he feels like he always thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and for the first time, when he's asked what happened, he's like, I don't know what that was. I don't know what happened, and I don't know if he's sleeping or sick or dying, or I don't know. And I think that knocked him down a peg, which I was excited to see, because it didn't do what you wanted, and it did. I agree that would have been cool to see as well, but it did make him seem like a more realistic character for me.
Yeah, I like too that he is. Like, there's layers to this character. He's not just a badass. And I hadn't thought of that perspective either, Roxy, but you're completely right that that's exactly what it is. Up to this point, he's very much presented as, I am the smartest person in the room. And in both episodes so far, there's been moments of like him kind of getting knocked down a peg, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I really dug that whole sandcrawler sequence for two reasons. One is that it reminded me of Super Star Wars, the video game.
Yeah.
Where you go outside of a sandcrawler.
Oh my God, it was so great.
Going up, yeah. But also because it was a great action sequence. We get to see him being a badass and hooking onto the back and diving out of the way of that big boulder side and climbing up. And by the way, I realized Darth Vader said to Boba Fett, "No disintegrations," and now we see,
I thought about that too.
Disintegrating Jawas. Didn't know I needed it till I got it. So yeah, it was such a great, like, fighting his way up, but then he still got shot off the top, because guess what? When there's like over a dozen of these guys, he kind of reminds me almost of Indiana Jones. Like, it's like definitely like badass, clever, but like not inhuman, you know, can get knocked down. So I definitely enjoy that, even though I do see your point, Dan, about the Force saving him in that other part that, you have to kind of, it's a very tricky balance.
Let's pivot for a second and talk about the runtime, because this has been
Can we do that in a non-spoiler way? I just want to make sure that people can access as much
pay
of the
attention.
conversation.
Okay, well,
Spoilery thoughts before we wrap.
then okay. Any other spoilery thoughts, guys?
No, just I would die for Baby Yoda. It's so cute.
Died for Baby Yoda, and I loved Nick Nolte, the Ugnaught, and hope he shows up again.
I love him too. I need more of it. All right, let's wrap on spoilers. Bye-bye, Joe. Oh,
Joe.
poor Joe. We will miss having you dance like that for us. We are still talking Mandalorian, but we are doing this spoiler-free now, just talking about the runtime of the first 2 episodes, the first one being 38 minutes, the second one being 32 minutes, and the internet being both peeved and excited at the same time. Shocker on that one. Dan, thoughts on the runtime of this? Do you care about the runtime as long as it's a good episode, or how are you feeling?
That's the great thing about the freedom now of not having to be on a network, is episodes can be as long as they need to be. And I thought that both episodes were as long as they need to be. Like, I to be honest, I was up very late watching this, and then I got up and came. So I haven't really been plugged into what the buzz has been, but like, I mean, people are really, I mean, this idea of like, you owe me 50 minutes, like, they don't owe you anything. They owe you a good show, and part of making a good show should be that you're making these episodes and these stories as long as they need to be. This was a very sort of self-contained episode in the sense that it dealt with one set of problems and then had a natural ending point. Like, to artificially lengthen that doesn't make any sense to me. So this idea of like, we're owed episodes of a certain length, that I think that is so just presumptive and entitled. It's like, no, like, maybe if we get to the end of it and there's a lot left unexplained, and people want to say like with Game of Thrones, that they rushed through it, when you have the whole scope of the story, then that's fine. But like, to week by week say like 33 minutes, you owed me 50, like, that is just so, come on.
I think the only reason that people are getting so, as you say, like, because there is, again, as we talked about on Tuesday, the idea of, we're used to like the constraints of network television, but those constraints no longer exist when you're talking streaming platforms. And I think that mostly the reason that people are getting mad that the episodes are so short is just because they want more right away, because we've gotten so used to this sort of like binge culture of, especially with stuff that's distributed on streaming platforms, everything dropping all at once. But I mean, you look at something like, say, Glow, which is a fantastic series on Netflix, and the episodes of that show are 30 minutes. The thing is that people are used to being able to watch 30 minutes and then immediately watch another 30 minutes, and then suddenly you're done with the show, and then a week later nobody's talking about that show anymore. This is an interesting scenario we find ourselves in, where we have a week-to-week 30 to 40 minute streaming show. And so I think people are just getting frustrated because they want more right away, instead of really taking a step back and looking, hey, did this 30 minutes tell a concise story, beginning, middle, and end, leave me wanting more, but not like confused?
That's called a TV show.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like, that's the way that television was consumed up until about 5 years ago by everybody on Earth. And guess what? We made it. We survived.
Exactly.
And I agree with everything you said, Dan. It's like, we talked a bit about this on Tuesday, but just the fact that people have this preconceived notion because of network TV. Well, an hour-long, quote, hour-long show, a drama, should be at least 44 minutes, and then some streaming services let them go an hour, even more. Sometimes it'll be like an hour and 3 minutes, but it doesn't have to be. Like you mentioned, this show is it's so from his point of view.
Yeah.
So that, again, people were like, I was tweeting with someone about this who was arguing, and they're like, well, Game of Thrones episodes were always like a solid hour. I'm like, Game of Thrones had a million characters.
25 different perspectives.
Yeah, there was so many things they were juggling. This show is telling this guy's story, and if it's like, this week we just need 32, that's fine. At the end of the day, we're going to have, if we have 4 hours of great live action Star Wars at the end of the season, I'm totally fine with that. And also, it's like you were saying with comedies, those are 22 minutes if they're made for network, but then on streaming they can be longer. Sometimes I think Arrested Development Season 4 is a big example where everyone's like, these are too long, they should have cut back. And then I just watched into The End of the Effing World Season 2.
Oh, yeah.
And they do episodes sometimes that are like 19 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, they're like, that's what we needed.
Well, and also, like, going toward the end of the show, we don't know. I'm guessing that because this is a Star Wars show, that, they're going to want to do a big finale because it's a TV show. And like, the other thing is, every second on screen is money. And I know that we talk about Disney, but their budget is not unlimited.
No.
And, you know, it could very well be that they wrote the scripts and they said, like, okay, well, listen, I forget how many episodes are there?
8.
In episode 8, we have this big thing, this big, huge thing that's going to cost this amount of money. Okay, that's every second of that is money. So let's go to the front and say, like, okay, episode 1 and episode 2, we can make those 39 and 32 minutes. You know, maybe make a couple of trims here. That's literally money saved that you can reallocate. That's how budgeting works. That's how TV. Like this idea of like every TV show should give me everything that I ever wanted every single week,
every single moment.
Every single moment. It's like no. Like this is to judge it in real time based on just every episode individually. It's I guess that's just how we are now. But at the same time, it's like let it play out, and then go back and decide if things were too long or too short. But we're 2 episodes in. We don't know where this story is going. We don't know how it's going to end. The finale could be 75 minutes. We don't know, or it's going to be 40 minutes. It's going to be this huge thing that if it was 80 wouldn't get made or would be half the size. It's just. Come on.
I completely agree with you guys. I have no issue with the runtime. I am struggling with the release times. I don't love that they're like, we know you guys are going to watch, so we're just not going to give you any kind of heads up, because I guess it's a very specific issue, but as somebody who's doing coverage on the show, all of us in this room talking about it, when you just like randomly are dropping at 1 a.m. and I'm waiting up until midnight trying to watch you, and I wish they would be like, we are coming out every single night at 1 a.m. and just let me know.
I mean, it was supposed to be midnight last night, but then it seemed like a lot of people were. It was like depending on how you were watching it, it was showing up earlier for some people than others.
Yeah. There's something about setting your Xbox to New Zealand.
I don't know, but it was like that's the thing. Is
I think New Zealand doesn't get Disney Plus till
even if it was
no time. Oh, if you set it to a different. This was a Ken Knapsack hack.
It was a hack sock.
There was something about the first.
Netherlands.
It was Netherlands.
Oh,
Netherlands.
This is a knapsack hack on his Fire Stick from 2011.
But it's like, because even if it did drop at midnight, that's 3 a.m. on the East Coast. So yes, a specific problem for us and people in our realm is like trying to do coverage because they're not giving press screeners.
No.
But also, I am surprised, and again, I know people are watching this who are in other countries who would have different issues, but I understand Netflix dropping their stuff at midnight Pacific because they are literally all over the world. So midnight for us could be like prime time for someone else. But because Disney Plus is in very few countries right now, I am surprised with this show they're not doing the 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific launch and kind of treating it like Game of Thrones, because I feel like they could do that with this show.
This might be a buzz thing.
Maybe.
Like we're all on the internet.
They want people talking about it at the top of the day.
Everyone on the internet. But not even just that, but everyone on the internet last night. Mandalorian was trending for 5 hours before Mandalorian was dropped. When is Mandalorian dropping? Anyone know when Mandalorian is dropping? It's like a
maybe it's a marketing strategy.
Maybe. I don't love it, but I get it.
I just know that I'm getting older.
I feel you.
And it's harder for me to stay up. I just, if it's midnight or 1 o'clock, that's fine. I just want to know so I can go to bed and get up early, or know to stay up late and sleep in a little bit. It's really just my sleep schedule increasingly is dictating more and more of how I structure the rest of my week.
Get it.
One other part of the Star Wars story that I want to just briefly touch upon, and then we do have to move on. But when Favreau was talking to Variety at the Mandalorian fan event, he said, "Oh, I would definitely be interested in doing a holiday special." And I'm not going to
referenced Life Day, so this is not shocking.
And I'm not going to say who I would be interested in, but one of the people is a member of the cast in an upcoming episode of the show. So we'll leave it at that for now. Then he was kind of pressed to see if he was serious, because I'm sure a lot of people were like, are you joking or what's happening? He said, I've been thinking about it. It's ready. The ideas are ready. I think it could be really fun. Not as part of this, but there's an excitement around it because it was so fun and weird and off and not connected to what Star Wars was in the theater. The Mandalorian cartoon, the Boba Fett cartoon from the holiday special was definitely a point of inspiration for what we did in the show. Do you want to see whatever it is that he's talking about?
Yes.
Listen, Jon Favreau, here on SJU, we pitched a really good Star Wars holiday special that was A Christmas Carol for Kylo Ren. So call us. We will make it with you.
I think especially because people get so precious about Star Wars, and people, the people who are like, it should be badass, only badass, no humor. What is this humor? And then I'm like, guys, look back at the 70s.
Please.
They had Star Wars characters on Donnie and Marie. They had the holiday special. Muppets. Like it was never taken as seriously as you're taking it. So the holiday special is so infamous. If they could do something fun with it, I think why not?
Dan, you want to watch it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, only because it would be the first one. I don't think was quite conscious of what it was.
No, not at
which
all.
I think is one of the reasons why it's so not good.
Yeah,
VR Wookiee sex.
Really, kind of just bad.
It's really not very good. But I feel like if you were going to make it now, it would be conscious of what it is and could do the bad things in a fun way and an interesting way, not canonical, like just established right up front, like to our colleagues at Wikipedia that this is not a
this is Legends.
This is Legends. This is just us having a little fun with the Star Wars. Yes, fun with the Star Wars universe.
Fun and Star Wars.
And I'd be on board because I think it's a chance to just have a good time and hopefully step away from the very serious discourse around Star Wars and just have a good time. I'd be all for it. I'm not saying you got to bring in Luke and have Mark Hamill, but just
But if you did,
Just have fun.
I wouldn't complain.
Dan, Star Wars is not the only thing that takes place in the galaxy, though. There's also Galaxy Quest. You guys like what I did there? I don't know if it's as smooth of a transition when we call it out like that, but I kind of enjoyed it.
That was great.
Dan, talk to us about Never Surrender.
Never Surrender is a feature-length documentary that we made about Galaxy Quest, which, believe it or not, is turning 20 years old right around Christmas.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Almost drinking age. We got another
anniversary of Galaxy Quest, believe it or
Holy
not.
snap.
And
That's crazy.
So this has been literally years in process, brought home by Roth, Cornet, and Max Dionne here producing. So we're super excited about it. It really is fun. We did the world premiere at New York Comic Con last month, and it was a lot of fun. Great to see with the crowd. I know that there are a couple of the theaters here. We're doing a Fathom event nationwide on Tuesday, November 26th. That would be a week from next Tuesday, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We are super excited about it. We've seen people sending their ticket stubs and letting us know. We were looking at, I think there's one theater in LA here that's like sold out, which is amazing. I think this is a lot of fun to see with the crowd, especially if it's a crowd about Galaxy Quest. So please, we would love it for you to join us on November 26th nationwide for the Fathom event for Galaxy Quest, our Galaxy Quest documentary, Never Surrender. We will be announcing later other options. It's not going to end here with this Fathom. This is not your only chance, but we would love for you to come and see it because, again, it's going to be on a big screen. You see it with the crowd. There's a lot of laughter. There's a real lot of love and passion and heart for the movie, both in front of and behind the screen. So please join us. And also, no pressure, but because it's a Fathom event, even though the numbers won't go toward the weekend, that means that Never Surrender is chart eligible. And it would be very embarrassing. I would really like to be able to put up a good number for Galaxy Quest for Never Surrender.
That's
Now,
kinda cool.
I have a question because it is a Fathom event. Will Scott Mance be on the screen to welcome me to the screening?
No, you have to deal with us. We act there. By the way, I should say there is a pre-show featuring us and featuring some exclusive sneak preview goodies that you might want to check out. So unfortunately, this is the one Fathom event where Scott Mance will not be in the pre-show. We should have. He's in the movie though.
Yes,
He's in the movie, so not in the pre-show, but
in the show.
But
he made it in.
It's a Fathom event that he's in, so I think his record remains unbroken. The streak is alive.
Who are these two crazy kids that we're shouting out today?
We've got Eric Garber at Brave Star Lord with 2 stars, like Joe Starr, and Lauren
Adopt
with an
me,
Lord with
Rockstar.
an E. Billy, do we have images today or no? Or just
Sorry,
we're just
I
shouting
whipped
out.
on
That's
this
fine.
No, we're just giving them shout outs.
Eric Garber, Brave Star Lord, thank you for sending in your picture. We're excited for you to see it. And then Crazy Art _ Lady at Crazy Art _ Lady.
Prove it. I want to see some crazy art.
She may have sent us some crazy art. I don't know. I haven't seen the tweet, but thank you for buying your ticket. We're excited to share Never Surrender with you and with everybody. And as I said, stay tuned if you can't make it. More info after the Fathom event is over about how you can see the documentary. We're super excited and super proud of it.
I'm very excited for you guys and very proud of you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Also wanted to talk briefly about Big Brother and Big Sisters of America, an organization that I was a part of growing up, so I can speak to it personally. I was a big sister, and this is such a great organization to support. It's the nation's largest volunteer-supported mentoring network, and if you're interested in volunteering to mentor youth, please visit BBBS, so Big Brother, Big Sister, bbbs.org to learn more. You really can change somebody's life, and you can do that by giving your time with them, which is one of the best things that you can do, and it's also really fun. We got to go on a ton of different adventures and trips and activities, and I can't recommend it enough. Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America, absolutely. bbbs.org and learn more. And now, guys, it is time. It is officially time. If you've been wondering why I've been doing this weird thing with my arm for the last 30 minutes of this show, I have something in my hand. Unfortunately, she's not named Lucille because we lost her or she's hiding from us. Negan lost Lucille at one point as well,
sure.
so, you can't blame us. But I do have a ridiculously heavy sword and no bell, so I'll just whack this on the table every time something happens.
Rox. Well done.
That's it.
From Screen Junkie Studios, it's time to tune in to TV Fights. And now your host, Roxy Striar.
Guys,
Back from the dead.
don't give me any idea. I love that. We are officially doing one round of a TV fight, and if you guys have been waiting to know what the question is, I'm about to tell you right now. What is the best cartoon series on Disney Plus? This is a Disney Plus kind of day. We're fighting this out. Dan, I'm going to come to you first for what your pick is for what's the best cartoon series on Disney Plus.
This shouldn't be a big surprise to anybody. I stand the series everywhere that I go. It's X-Men the Animated Series. It's an oldie but a goodie. It was the introduction for both myself and really almost an entire generation for a lot of kids to not just the X-Men universe, but the world of Marvel, the world of comics, and also just the world in general. Because, yes, it was...
No shit isn't real.
No, but it took on. Of course, there were Sentinels and there was the Mojo episode and everything. But it also tackled things like prejudice in a way that the kids could understand. That I think was just an introduction to the world. It wasn't preachy, but at the same time, it was something you can still revisit as an adult and appreciate. Not to mention, with respect to Hugh Jackman, my favorite version of Wolverine ever, and the only time Cyclops has ever been realized in any way
correctly at all.
Correctly ever. I love that show.
I know, but I love this show. I love all the shows people are
I love it so much, and there's a lot of fun shows that are on Disney Plus. But X-Men the Animated Series for me takes the cake.
Emma, what do you got?
All right, listen. What is the mark of a truly great animated series, if not iconic characters, some well executed accents, and a very, very catchy theme song? I'm talking about DuckTales, but not old DuckTales, new DuckTales. It's very unusual that a reboot of the series improves upon the original without alienating the people that did love the original. The thing that the Disney XD version of DuckTales where it really, really succeeds is the fact that it is made for the audience that watched DuckTales as kids. Yes, it is absolutely kid-friendly, and it addresses a lot of really important issues. It takes what were kind of just somewhat realized caricatures in the original series and develops them into having individual personalities. Huey, Dewey, and Louie are all very, very different from each other. Webby, no longer just the girl. She's like a weird loner that's learning to interact with people. It really addresses a lot of really good real-world issues like abandonment and trying to make friends for the first time, and fills in some holes like, how are Huey, Dewey, and Louie actually related to Donald? He's their uncle, so where does that all kind of fit in? And again, it is very much made for the people that watch DuckTales as kids, so the humor is very much aimed at adults while still having a really nice sort of moral lesson teaching for the children that are discovering it for the first time.
Okay, Eric.
I had to go with Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which I mentioned briefly earlier. Look, this show came on at a strange time for Star Wars, post-prequel, but before Disney and before the sequel trilogy. So Star Wars was not nearly as big in sort of the pop culture landscape. It was that kind of not dormant period, but quieter period. And I think The Clone Wars, man, did it carry the torch during that time. You had George Lucas still actively involved, but Dave Filoni can't say enough about how crucial he was and how crucial he's continued to be. We just mentioned The Mandalorian to Star Wars. Working together, and I think it really deepened the Star Wars world, and especially the prequel world. I mean, it made the prequels better, or at least helped you understand some of the things that happened in the prequels. Like, oh yeah, let's see Anakin and Obi-Wan as actual friends. Let's see Anakin's ongoing issues with the Jedi Council and ongoing things that are really driving him, so that when he makes that turn to Revenge of the Sith, we have so much more behind it. It also offered incredible action sequences, some of my favorite in all of Star Wars, some of the coolest lightsaber fights in all of Star Wars, and Ahsoka Tano. It introduced incredible, huge, important elements to Star Wars that continue to play a role today. So there's just so many great things about this series, so many highlights for me, and that is why it's my pick.
Bang, bang, bang. Let's fight it, guys. What do you got?
Well, we were talking about how with The Mandalorian, they do such a nice job of not having any excess, not having any fluff thus far, and just telling a really concise story. I agree with you. I am a massive fan of Clone Wars. The only thing is, because Clone Wars is serialized, there are entire serials basically within Clone Wars that don't quite hit the mark of some of, like you say, the really big character development stuff with, Ahsoka Tano, who, by the way, when she was first introduced, not popular. It took her a long time to get to where she is, and she starts off kind of annoying. So again, it's like the stories within Clone Wars that really, really hit home. I totally agree. They are absolutely some of the best Star Wars in the world, but they're just not all bangers, is what I'm saying.
I would just say that, the thing about it is because, yes, Ahsoka was annoying when she was introduced, but that's kind of the great thing about the show is because it went on for many years, we're getting one more season next year, that it actually has incredible character development. And you see Ahsoka specifically because she starts out as this bratty 14-year-old or so. We get to see her get older, get more, education in the Force, but also just become more mature as a person, and that they were able to do that and take, like I said, Obi-Wan and Anakin, characters we already knew, but maybe Anakin we didn't know that in depth when we know he didn't like sand, but it got to develop them so much more, give all these extra elements to a world we already love. But this was no, there's way more layers to this than you know, and way more to these characters than you know. And so yes, you take that annoying stuff in the beginning, but it's important to set up what came after.
I think that I respect that, but I think kind of tying what you said, its greatest strength to me is greatest weakness, which is that it's a world that you love and it fills in the gaps. But that's if you're a Star Wars fan.
That's true.
And I think that Clone Wars does a great job of being a great addendum, an appendix, an addition to what you already know. But I think it's also a bit narrowcast to people that are Star Wars fans and want that filled in. X-Men the Animated Series, I believe, is still 30 years, 25 years after it came out, the definitive version of the X-Men. All other versions, there have been some flashes of brilliance, but all other versions of X-Men have had major flaws, major holes, characters that are brushed over that you never nailed. They've never gotten Gambit right. X-Men the Animated Series, the only place where they've really gotten that character. Same with Rogue, the only place where they've really gotten that character. My God, the same with Storm. They have never done Storm justice in any other version of X-Men. This was the version definitively for so many X-Men characters. Star Wars is a great addition. I think DuckTales is, as you mentioned, it's a nice a reference point for people that like DuckTales, but at the same time, I think you can also watch the old DuckTales. You can have that debate. I think it's hard to debate how important X-Men is and was to both that canon and comics and mainstream media in general.
Yeah, well,
Final thoughts,
I think
Emma.
just sort of building off of what you were saying, Dan, on the opposite side of that, unlike with X-Men, which I completely agree, that's the only version of X-Men that to me is correct. DuckTales was able to take something that had this great foundation. I credit the original DuckTales with my interest in Greek mythology because they had an episode that was the Odyssey. But what it does is it took this great foundation of something that existed where you were getting these cool adventures and life lessons and just really deepened it and brought it into the 21st century and made it something that not only is enjoyable for the people that already were fans of DuckTales, but enriched the message that it was telling and made it very relevant to kids today, which ultimately we want our children to learn from the programming they're watching, and addresses a lot of mental health, psychological kind of issues and things like that are really important.
Eric.
I would say that Clone Wars, the thing is, I don't think it only spoke to people who were Star Wars fans, because I've seen Dave Filoni talk about this. There are a lot of kids that was their entry. That was their gateway to Star Wars, was the Clone Wars, because the movies weren't doing anything at that point. So I think it did help introduce a lot of new fans. And that's the thing about the show, is that it delivered things for all ages, literally. And there were episodes that were more comical in nature, but there were really intense, dramatic ones. So I think it was Star Wars at its best because it could deliver to all these different audiences. We were talking about humor, all these different elements that play into Star Wars, and it was all on display here. Plus, there was an episode where Ahsoka Tano leapt in the air and cut off 4 guys' heads at once, and I think that makes Clone Wars the best animated series ever.
Dan.
I think that my series established really the strengths that both Eric and Emma have addressed in their closing arguments. Number one, X-Men does absolutely address issues for kids that should be addressed, that are universal, that are still relevant today. Also, in an entertaining way. If you want to go the badass route, I'll put Wolverine taking down a Sentinel single-handed up against chopping off 4 heads at once. I think we can go.
How many heads were cut off of DuckTales?
We can go snicks for snicked if you want to go awesome action.
Listen,
yeah.
Severed Heads does not a great animated series make.
And then I think that X-Men was also an introduction for a lot of people, myself included. Again, not just to X-Men, but to the world of comics, but in a way that I think endures in the sense that it was one of the first pieces of media to treat comic books and comic book characters as relevant, not as just fodder for kids shows. I think in a way it helped pave the way for a show like Clone Wars that can be dramatic, but also aimed at children. I think that X-Men the Animated Series was one of the first, if not the first, shows that was able to do that in an entertaining and an effective way. I think it was a trailblazer in a lot of ways, and I think that's kind of what puts it a cut above.
Fact checker Billy Business, what do you got for me?
So, X-Men. There we go. X-Men premiered in October of 1992, so 27 years removed.
Wow.
If you want my opinion
I do.
on the fight, I think Eric and Emma did a great job of telling me how their series. I'm going to take this off because
Because it's
I think you two did a great job of telling me why your series helped the franchise that it was a part of, how it filled in holes. Well, I feel like Dan actually told me how his series was the baseline, it was the jumping off point, and why it was a great series in itself rather than a great addendum to a franchise that already had a series. So I'm going Dan.
I agree. I think he combined the two arguments as well. Dan, you win this very short round of the TV fight. Congratulations, the sword has spoken.
Thank you very much.
I usually take notes during the fight, but I was like, I have to hold this with 2 hands.
I was really happy though with Emma's "Severed Heads does not a good animated series make" quote.
I will just say that it's not a prerequisite. It's not a prerequisite for a good animated series.
We do need to put that in a shirt somewhere.
That was my debate coaching coming through. It's just like, he talked about action. I've got to talk about action.
If you have severed heads, I have more severed heads.
Yeah.
And that's how good TV works. But nobody has good TV. Look what I did. Let's talk a little bit of Friends. We don't have that much time left, but I do want to mention the Friends reunion because I could talk about this all day. This was initially via, as Joe likes to say, to her. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that the 6 core stars and the creators of NBC Comedy from Warner Brothers TV are in talks to reunite on HBO Max. But this is kind of a different reunion than what we have talked about in the past or people have been asking for. What is in discussion right now is an unscripted reunion special that would feature the main cast and also David Crane and Marta Kaufman. An unscripted reunion. And we don't know that much more about it. And again, it's still in talks and not slated to 100% happen. Sources caution that a deal is far from done. So if you're like me out there and you're counting your eggs before they hatch, chill out for a second. When and if the deals are completed, the challenge then becomes sorting out everyone's schedules because, of course, this cast is incredibly busy. When you guys initially heard this news, did it excite you at all? How are you guys feeling? Emma, coming to you first. Friends reunion, unscripted, 6 of them, and the creators.
Yeah, it's the unscripted that I'm like, so they're talking unscripted as in like reality series, docu-series, getting everybody
I think
back
it's like
together.
a conversation is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
It's them sitting on a couch saying like Friends was a thing we did. That's what I'm guessing.
See, I think I would rather what I have envisioned in my head, which is just like them living their lives for a week and we just follow them around.
You want a straight up reality show.
Yeah,
an unscripted, like give me Terrace House Friends. They just all live in the same house. I don't know. Eric, what are you thinking?
I mean, it seems it makes a lot of sense to me. I would like to say, Roxy, that several times I suggested since August we do a Friends. How big is Friends still a conversation? So I'm glad it finally happened.
Oh my God, you do love me.
But no, because Friends it's odd to me as someone who likes Friends. It's still kind of insane to me how popular it still is. But this is a show that HBO Max just spent like several $100 million on. So it makes $500 million on. And so for them to be like, look, Jesus. And everyone wants to see those 6 people back together. Yes. That the dream, if you're Warner Brothers, is we get them to do new episodes, which they keep saying they're not going to do.
Like Will and Grace style.
Yeah. But since they're saying no, to just even get them together to do some special that can help promote, we are the new exclusive home of Friends as of the debut of HBO Max. That makes sense to me, especially because, again, this is a crown jewel for Warner Media, is that Friends is their show. And it's turned out to be this cash cow that keeps on giving.
Cash cow, I like that.
Cash cow.
Dan, what do you think?
Roxy, I don't want new Friends episodes. I hope that I'm not disappointing you there. But I feel like Friends, the show itself, was very much, while many people still watch it, very much also rooted in its time, very much in the 90s. And the finale was not, it wasn't like Seinfeld even, where it kind of left people kind of like, I don't know about that. I actually think what they did on Curb Your Enthusiasm with Seinfeld was the best version that you could do, in that they sort of made new Seinfeld shows, but they also made it about making Seinfeld, so they didn't have the pressure of producing new Seinfeld episodes. But I think that people seemed, and I certainly was, very happy with how Friends ended. And
it's the best finale of all time. So does that make sense that you were happy with it?
Yeah, it's like, why would you want to add more to that? Whereas if you want to bring them together and have a discussion, or even I like that idea of just like kind of catch up with the actors and then bring them together. Like, I'm totally cool with that. I like that idea.
It's interesting verbiage because a couple of years ago we did do a reunion type thing, sans Matthew Perry because busy. It was kind of undisclosed why he didn't show up. But I wonder how this is different, and is it just a marketing strategy? And that's what's going to really upset me, is if what we see, what causes people to sign up for HBO Max is that they say we are doing a Friends reunion, and then we turn it on and it's like a 10 to 20-minute retrospective of them sitting there being like,
I don't think that's what it's going to be. I maybe it's because I just watched last night on Netflix Best Worst Thing That Ever Could Have Happened, which is about the original 1982 production of the Stephen Sondheim musical Merrily We Roll Along. So I'm getting like real deep and nerdy here, but who knew that existed? But they have, but for whatever reason, they have so much archival footage of their audition process, their rehearsal process, and like I would love to see Friends get a treatment like that, where it is like, as you say, like a catch up with the actors now, but also get this sort of introspective into the making of the series. Because I agree with you, Dan. It is like it's still a super fun show. There's a lot of people still discovering it now, going back and watching it now, but it's very much a product of its time.
Get them for half a day. 4 hours in a theater, get maybe an audience there. And
oh my God, if I am not invited to that, then nobody cares about me.
Record it and throw it up. You have like probably three 3.5 hour Friends special where you just go over the whole process. I think that would be very appealing.
I think it's gonna be something like that. They're in a theater on stage, sitting on a couch, and they're gonna segment it and be like, let's talk about the audition process. Let's talk about when you were making the show. What's it been like seeing how this new audience for it keeps getting new fans? You know,
how does Roxy get to host that?
Yeah, Roxy, what do you want? You're the biggest. What do you want in your heart?
You know, in my heart of hearts, honestly, what I have been wanting for so long is a reunion episode, scripted, well done. Where are they now? What are they up to? It's incredibly problematic, especially Joey's character, because he doesn't live very well in 2019. But for so long, I've wanted, where are they?
Yeah.
If it sucks, then I won't have wanted it, because then I'll be destroyed. So it's a risky thing to want. But as somebody who has a little bit of a gambling problem, I for sure. You learn new things about me all the time. Talk to my therapist, geez. But I would like to roll the dice on this one, because I would love to see what actually happened. And the amount of people I've had to fight over the years about the fact that Rachel and Ross are still together to this day is too many people. And I need friends to tell us.
You just need to be right.
Yeah, I do. But I would take a multiple hour, how we did this, what it meant to us, all of us chilling. The fact that they're all still 6 friends and we see them countless times on each other's shows, that's crazy that the cast is still close. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to make this a really cool version. I just get nervous because of scheduling, and because of the fact that Matthew Perry didn't previously show up, and because of the fact that the Friends creators have said we will never do any kind of reunion type thing, why they're doing this now, what this will look like, and if this is just a marketing tool to get us to get HBO Max. So we will see.
Roxy, did you know my mom was on an episode of Friends?
We've known each other for several years now. Which episode? What happened?
I can't. It's a tiny moment, but people who are big fans like you usually know what I'm talking about. She played Jon Favreau's mom on the video phone on the couch.
Was she an actress?
My mom's an actress, yeah. And so they mean to be calling Pete Becker, but they call Mrs. Becker instead.
I know what your mom. I know what your mom looks like.
Yeah. So.
Through all the TVs, and they're all in and they're high. What?
Yeah.
Eagle-eyed viewers also can spot Mr. Hal Rudnick.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And I've spotted him many times. Crazy. I'm sitting in a room with royalty right now. So again, more news will definitely be coming out about the Friends reunion, and we'll have to see what it is. Please don't break my heart. Please, I'm begging you guys. I want to be happy for the rest of my life with Friends.
Do it for Roxy.
Do it for me. Do it for me. Well, thank you, and you guys have done it for us. So thank you guys so much for watching another SJU. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you're thinking. What's your dream Friends episode? Who do you think won that TV fight? How are you feeling about Mandalorian? All of those things and many more. Thank you, Billy Business, for being the amazing fact checker that you've always been. He tipped his cap, but he didn't put the camera back. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Billy. Eric, until next time, where can the people find you?
The Eric Goldman on the Twitter and the Instagram, and articles at fandom.com, and the We Enjoy Wrestling podcast.
Emma?
I'm Emma Fyffe, all over the internet, wherever Emma Fyffes are sold. You can also catch me on Jedi Council over at Collider on Thursdays, as well as Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Hyper RPG right now. I am on a show called He Left It Dead, which is a live play Call of Cthulhu campaign that Joe Starr is the keeper for, which is what you call your GM in Call of Cthulhu.
Well, does he know that you would kill him if he let the...
It's not... He wasn't our GM for the Star Wars game. He was not.
Thank goodness.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I literally, am gonna text Bert, who was our GM for that game, and be like... Jawas, never.
Dan?
At Murrell Dan, you can catch me here charting with Dan on Monday. We'll be talking about the box office. Looks like Ford versus Ferrari is going to do well. We'll see. We'll see how it does over the weekend. And Never Surrender, you can catch all that info down there in the description below. And if you're near a theater that's playing Honey Boy, there's just a PSA for a movie that I love. It's in limited release.
I'm seeing it tonight.
I want to see it.
Enjoy, because it's really good. You're near a theater. There's a few in LA.
Okay, then I will. I still have to see Parasite. It's Parasite, Honey Boy.
Both great. If you're in a theater, there's also playing Parasite. But no, Honey Boy is one of my favorite movies of the year, and we're getting toward the end of it. So go see it.
I'm everywhere at Roxy Striar, and we will see you guys on Monday morning for SJU.
Farewell.
This episode was brought to you by Verizon Wireless, launching the 5G ultra wideband network for ultra fast speeds, ultra low latency, and massive capacity. This is 5G built right.